Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joe Pisapia, and this is BP NFL. And it's week 3, and Tuesdays we like to take a look into the lines and kind of dig a little deeper from the stats point of view. And of course, nobody better to do that with than the data scientist himself, Sam Hoppen, who's going to give us some numbers that can influence our bets in week 3. We're also going to give you survivor pool picks. I'm eliminated. I can't believe the Ravens lost at home last week, Sam. Embarrassing, horrible. So you can take my pick with a grain of salt. Just keep listening to Sam. He's still alive. But we're coming off a Monday Night Football game last night. Sam, I want to talk to you real quick because the analytics have changed a lot in football. And last night I'm watching the game, and I'm on massive amounts of cold medicine because I am sick. And I don't think that was influencing my thought process at the time. But I'm watching them. I can't remember if it was 4th and goal or they were just 4th and close down by the goal line. And early in that game, the Eagles decided not to take that 3. They could have kicked the field goal, gotten some points. Instead, they tried to go for it early on. And all I kept thinking about is, that's going to haunt you later in this game, I feel like, if you don't get it. Get points, especially against teams that have a pretty good defense. And the Falcons have proven that defense is going to be pretty good. They were pretty good against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were pretty good last night, even though A.J. Brown wasn't there on the field for the Philadelphia Eagles. They still had Smith. They still had Barkley and Hurst. So a lot of weapons to deal with. How often do these models take into into account what's going on in these decisions and what the other team does well or doesn't do well? Because you're seeing a lot more of this in the NFL where teams are going for it on these 4th down situations in different spots. I just thought that was a really weird one. It's not kind of like, I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm just not like oh my God, I'm going backwards here looking at this and hindsight is 2020. I said it while it happened, and sure enough, at the end of the day, it won me money because they lost and the Falcons covered. But what do you make of that decision? And what do you make of some of these new analytics and how they're working into some of these decisions that coaches make?
I do think it is helping a lot of teams, and most of these models do not take team strengths into account, or, they take into account what the teams have done in the game so much as like what the score is. So if a team has scored 26 points, like that's accounted for in said model, in addition to like the score differential at that point. But it's, analytics is this black box term. I mean, you hear Joe Buck on the broadcast last night saying analytics would say go for it. Well,
the light green and the dark green and all that stuff. I'm like, oh geez, this is where we're at right now.
And what it really is, again, is it's a model that takes into account win probability, what the win probability would be if a team converted that 4th down versus punting it away or kicking a field goal and making said field goal. And, it's as simple as like in the final 4th down decision for the Eagles last night, it was 4th and 3. The clock was stopped. The Falcons didn't have any timeouts. If they get that 1st down, the game is over because they can kneel it out. The Falcons can't stop the clock. They're up by 3. Instead, they choose to kick the field goal, go up by 6, and the Falcons march right down the field. And going up 6 versus being up 3, there's been some studies about the fact that that's not that great because it incentivizes the other team to go and score a touchdown and to win the game. If you're up by 3, the other team probably is going to be a little less aggressive and just try to kick the field goal to tie. Yeah, right. So there is some, mental aspects to it, if you will. The players need to buy into it for sure. We've seen with the Lions that Dan Campbell has been very aggressive with his play calling on 4th down, but the players buy into it and they know the risks and the rewards of those types of play calls. And, you mentioned before we started recording momentum and what does that have to do with it? Now, momentum is a very hot button topic in the analytics community because there are many who agree that it exists, but that it's very difficult to actually measure what that is, right?
Of course it is, but I think anybody who played a sport in their whole life knows. And I mean, I still coach youth flag football every weekend. I can tell you, you come up with a pick 6 in a game, that momentum happens. It switches. You see the other team lose a little steam. It happened twice in our game this weekend, right? We had 2 pick 6s. You could see the other team just deflated, and that was it for them. Look, it's a great conversation. I think it's important to point out too, because certain coaches that have certain style you have to pay attention to these things as you're looking at some of these lines, because they are going to come up. Moral of the story, take the points. Take the points, especially if you think it's going to be a close game here, with the team on the other side is going to have a good defense. All right, let's get to week 3 and turn the page. Before we do, just a reminder, we're giving away a Nick Chubb signed helmet. That's right. And if you want a chance to score this autographed Nick Chubb helmet for free, courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to bettingpros.com/contest, complete the form, and either download the Betting Pros app, leave a review on the Betting Pros podcast, or subscribe to our social media channels at Betting Pros on X and TikTok and Betting Pros NFL on Instagram. The more actions you complete, the more entries you will receive. And we'll be announcing the winner right here on the channel of the autographed Nick Chubb helmet. So make sure you turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up, and subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel. All right, let's start here with some of the stat lines that need to matter and some of the potential movement that we might see this week. Let's start with the Dolphins and Seahawks, Sam.
So obviously it seems like Tua is not going to play in this game. Skylar Thompson is going to start for the Dolphins, despite the Dolphins adding, I believe, Snoop Huntley to their roster. That sounds like more of a depth thing from what Mike McDaniel was saying. But when we see backup quarterback situations, we tend to see those teams who are starting the backup take a little bit of money and move the line, I guess, in their favor. And there have been some studies in the past that show that the value of a backup quarterback being played is actually a bit undervalued, in the sense that the line moves too far against that backup quarterback, or the market downgrades that team a little bit too much, especially in the first week. So I think the game opened up around 6. It's sitting at 5 in favor of the Seahawks. You can see 5.5 in some places as well, but wonder if we see a little bit more of a bounce back here, especially with how good the Dolphins scheme is and the way that Mike McDaniel can scheme players open. I mean, they still have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Devon Achane to create explosive plays as long as you're getting the ball in their hands. So that's something I'm certainly monitoring. That's in the range where it could be a potential teaser leg for the Seahawks if it does get back out to 6.5. But I think it'll most likely go towards the Dolphins in this game.
It's funny because we were talking about this game yesterday, Andrew and I, on the Look Ahead show, and we both said the same thing, which was, so far the Seahawks have played the Patriots and have played the Denver Broncos. Neither of those two teams necessarily have an onset of incredible weapons to work with, right, in that offense. So this is going to be a real test. Everyone's been talking about the Seattle Seahawks defense. This is much more of a test here when you get Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Achane. So I'm with you. I'm on the Miami side of this game. Let's go to the next one here. Packers at Titans. The Packers came away running the football. I know, 752 times. They ran the football, and look, it was smart. Stick to the game plan. Don't let Malik Willis screw things up. This is the Malik Willis revenge game. And of course, Will Levis continues to literally hand the ball and hand games over to the other team. I don't know if he can ever break that, but what are you looking at in this game when you're talking about the odds and you're talking about potential movement in this one? Because so far, Malik Willis has more wins this year than Will Levis.
So there's a mix of 2.5s and 3s out there. Those 2.5s are juiced quite a bit towards the 3. So pretty much the Titans favored by 3 at this point. But last week, Jordan Love did not practice at all, but he was questionably made questionable on the Friday game report. Then he was downgraded to doubtful, and then obviously did not play on Sunday. Now, I'm guessing this was a little bit of gamesmanship on the part of the Packers, and I don't think that Jordan Love plays, but I do think it is more likely than not that Love is back sooner rather than later. And the fact that he was questionable, again, whether that was gamesmanship or not, I think the Packers...
I don't think there was any shot he was playing in that game, Sam.
Well, there might have been a shot he was playing in that game if he gets the right shot. But I do think that there is, and this is maybe something to monitor just with the Packers in general over the next couple of weeks, but it seems like there's a little bit more optimism out of their camp in terms of this injury not truly being as bad as what the NFL world initially thought it would be. So again, Jordan Love is a huge, huge, huge upgrade over Malik Willis, even a hobbled Jordan Love. So something to certainly monitor over the next couple of days.
All right, next game we're going to talk about here, the Panthers at Raiders. So change of quarterback here. So let's talk about how that's going to impact the line, as Bryce Young got 2 games, and that was enough for new head coach Dave Canales. We'll see if Bryce Young can sit and learn a little bit and maybe get another crack at things. But Andy Dalton's going to take over the reins, as predicted on the Fantasy Pros podcast Monday morning by Pat Fitzmaurice. Shout out to Fitzy on that one. So how does that impact the line, in your opinion, for Panthers-Raiders?
So this game opened with the Raiders as 7-point favorites. It's now Raiders down to 5.5-point favorites. So clearly the market says that Andy Dalton is worth about 1.5 compared to Bryce Young on the spread. I think a lot of people expected that if and when this quarterback change was going to happen. So again, there are 5s out there, 5.5s out there. From what I can see on the board right now. Again, I don't know where this line is going to go, because there could be a lot more people who buy into Andy Dalton and what he can provide for that offense, which is a base level floor that Bryce Young was just absolutely destroying with his play. And the Raiders haven't, they beat the Ravens last week, but they haven't been, gangbusters in terms of how they've performed. Their rushing offense is among the league worst, kind of with the Panthers. Like, there's a chance these teams don't combine for more than like 70 rushing yards together. But all that to say, with any quarterback change, I think later in the week there could be some fluctuation in terms of where this line goes.
All right, let's take a quick break here before we get to a look at the futures market, and remind everybody about downloading the BettingPros app right now for iOS or Android, and sync your sportsbooks for free, because automatically you could track all your bets across major sportsbooks all in one spot. You can monitor your bet performances by sport and by bet type, including game picks, props, and parlays. Create custom betting systems as well to find winning trends and profitable opportunities. You can get a free trial too of BettingPros Premium right now by downloading the app for the first time and activating your trial on the upgrade screen. BettingPros. Start betting smarter, not harder. All right, let's take a look at the futures market here. I don't think any of us really thought that the only undefeated team in the AFC North would be the Pittsburgh Steelers after the first 2 weeks of the season, but here's where we are. The Ravens are 0-2, they're at plus 190. The Bengals are 0-2, they're plus 195. The Steelers are plus 340 now, and the Cleveland Browns, who are 1-1, are plus 450. Now, the Bengals kind of have their back up against the wall this week. I think they will come up with a victory. More on them later, but this is certainly an odd start to the year for this division, Sam. What do you make out of this look into the future for the AFC North?
Yeah, Mike Tomlin working his voodoo once again. Just going to sail right to that 9-8 level season, potentially sneak this Steelers team into the playoffs. But I think it's really between the Bengals and Ravens at this point. But my pick right now to win this division is still the Cincinnati Bengals. If you look at the Ravens and sort of how they've played, again, I mentioned this a couple of times in the preseason, but the brain drain that they had on defense, specifically with so many coaches leaving for other opportunities. They had a bunch of turnover personnel-wise on the defense and both on the offensive line. And on the offensive line specifically, you can see how that's impacting the Ravens offense. You look at the next 3 games for the Ravens. They play at the Cowboys this week. They host the Bills the following week, and then they go to Cincinnati in week 5. So there's a chance that they start 0-5 or 1-4 potentially. So if you want to buy into the Ravens, I think the time to do so is a couple weeks from now. But again, the Bengals, they look tough against the Chiefs. They could have come away with that win if not for the pass interference on that final drive and allowing the Chiefs to score that field goal. Burrow looked healthier than he did in week 1 against the Patriots. It sounds like they're going to get T. Higgins back soon, as soon as this week even. And I think the week 1 loss was a little bit fluky to the New England Patriots. So again, you'll see a bunch of splits and stats about 0-2 teams making the playoffs and all that sort of stuff. But Michael Lopez, who works at the NFL, did some research, and really there's no difference or not much of a difference in a team going 0-2 in weeks 1 and 2 and a team going 0-2 in weeks 13 and 14 as it relates to their playoff chances. When you looked at each, sequential.
Right, and both the Bengals and Ravens took a loss to the Chiefs, who are still the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. So you can understand taking that with a grain of salt. And if the doctor could possibly prescribe a better matchup for Joe Burrow and company and Jamar Chase, it's the Washington secondary. So I'd be looking for the breakout here. I think it's time for the Cincinnati Bengals to get on track, and I think this is the week that they do. Let's move forward here to some of the key stats and numbers here that you're going to be paying attention to in week 3. And let's start with Jayden Daniels and some trends that you've seen here, Sam.
So right now, among 32 qualified passers so far this year, Jayden Daniels has the fastest time to throw at 2.33 seconds per throw. He has the second lowest average depth of target at 4.7 yards. And behind him is Patrick Mahomes, which is a story for another day. That's kind of wild. But Zach Ertz and Terry McLaurin right now lead the Commanders with about a 9.3, 9.2 yard ADOT respectively, but neither of them have been particularly great after the catch. A lot of Jayden Daniels' quick passes have also gone to the running backs, Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, so that's something to consider. But we saw this preseason that the Cliff Kingsbury offense is going to be, again, quick passes, short passes, get the ball out of his hands, try to protect Jayden Daniels from their weakness in the offensive line. And I think this is just an overarching point for Commanders pass catches, if you're looking at their player props, is to target the under on their yards and the overs on their receptions. The shorter passes are going to lead to more completable passes because they're closer to the quarterback. But again, with the lack of explosiveness after the catch, I just don't think they're going to be able to get to their yards as much as they would in a different offense. So I think there's some options too to play some inverse correlations here too. Take over 3.5 receptions, 4 over 5 receptions, and under the sort of 45.5 yard line, because again, they're going to be short area targets. They're going to get a lot of catches, but just aren't going to produce from them.
I think that's going to change over time as Daniels gets more comfortable. I hope anyway, because otherwise all my Terry McLaurin shares are going to be flushed down the toilet pretty soon. That's something we need to. He's a young quarterback. He started 2 games. I think as he goes on, he'll have more confidence throwing the ball downfield. But so far, the early stats certainly prove what you're talking about. Let's talk again, going backwards and talking about Skylar Thompson is going to take over for the Miami Dolphins under center for at least this week. We'll see if Huntley becomes the guy long-term, but certainly a lot of heavy usage last time we saw the Dolphins of the run game, which is not unlike them. But for Achane, that's something got to be careful of because the durability is something we're concerned with. So he does have a little extra time, having played on Thursday, to recuperate. Let's talk about the Dolphins, Thompson, this running attack, and how we can approach it in week 3 from a betting standpoint.
So this is actually more about the passing attack for the Dolphins running backs. This is a stat from Jake Tribby. Devon Achane is tied for the lead in targets among running backs with 14. Skylar Thompson's career running back target rate is 27%, which is higher than any week 1 NFL starter and much higher than Tua's 19% target rate to running backs. Mike McDaniel earlier this week also said that he can make a case for Achane getting even more touches. I think he got 29 touches in the Thursday night game against the Bills. Said it's not hard to give guys opportunities that really are thirsting for the ball. They're going to do something with it. And all he's done is give us more reasons to give him the ball. So we'll see if books have adjusted for this. Obviously, Raheem Mostert likely to be back, I think, next week, but he was not a threat in the passing game at all. I think Miami, we talked about earlier, is likely to be in a negative game script once again against the Seattle team. They're 5.5, 6-point underdogs. And so I think they're going to be forced to throw the ball. Again, get the ball quick out of Skylar Thompson's hand into Devon Achane's hands and let him run after the catch. So the overs on his reception specifically is something I'm looking at depending on where the line is set.
All right. So one more to get to here. And I saw a reel on this too. So this is a very hot topic in the analytic community where passing overall is down in the league this year. And it's been kind of a trend going that direction. You're seeing a lot more mobile quarterbacks. So offenses have sort of evolved a little bit. You're also seeing a lot of youth at the quarterback position, right? More rookies have been starting the last couple of years than ever before in the NFL. So how is that taken into effect here overall when you're approaching some of these lines and you're looking at, quarterback totals, you're looking at points and all of that, because it is a strong trend and it is where the NFL has, again, continued to evolve to. It's become a passing league, but in the last couple of years, the efficiency of that passing hasn't been quite as good because, let's be honest, the quarterback play has been spotty and different in terms of style of what you're getting from these guys under center. So let's talk about that kind of in the meta sense and also in the micro sense.
Yeah, I mean, in the meta sense, you mentioned a little bit that pass rates across the league are down across the board. I put out a chart each week that compares a team's expected dropback rate to their actual dropback rate. So that actually includes quarterback scrambles. So basically, was an offense intending to throw the ball? There are only 7 teams currently that are throwing the ball more than would be expected. That doesn't include the Chiefs either, which is you would normally expect them to be in on that side of things. Efficiency, yardage, scoring, all of this is down across the board. Now, again, it's a 2-week sample size. That is a key part of this. And I think we'll eventually see the league shift back towards the average. We're not going to see things completely flip on the other side and go towards only 7 teams being or throwing less than expected. But I do think it's something you want to pay close attention to when you're making player prop bets specifically, because again, those are, I think, what's going to impact things the most as it relates to yardage and things like that. But it's one of those things where I want to be ahead of that curve as much as I can. So trying to figure out, again, who are the specific teams that, again, are trending towards getting to be more pass happy and things like that, and understanding where the direction of the things are going. So again, if we realize 4 weeks from now that passing rates have gotten back to league average, well, there's nothing we can do with that. But if you can be early on some of those teams and on the league-wide trends, then I think that's very important to take a look at.
All right, let's look into the future for week 3 for survivor pool picks. Feel free to ignore me because obviously I know nothing because the Ravens lost at home. The Ravens lost their home opener to the Raiders. I'm probably not going to get over this all year, but good on the Raiders. They did a good job. They figured out a way to win that football game. And also, I think between the first week of the Bengals eliminating people and then the Ravens eliminating people, I think it's safe to say that you're in pole position right now. I actually love the Bengals this week. I think this is the week they get right. I think, as I mentioned before, having the Washington Commanders come into town is exactly what they need. And hopefully some of this cough medicine and stuff that I've been taking, I'm on NyQuil, I'm on DayQuil. I went 3 for 3 on the Monday Night Football bets last night. So if you saw that video, you might demand every week that I am hyped up on DayQuil to make every pick, because that was a good run. So hopefully the trend continues. But listen to Sam, everybody. He's got a better handle on this, I think, than I do. Where are you going for your pick of the week for survivor pools? Because it looks like you're targeting Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, you said I got a better handle on this. You forget that I touted the Bengals in week 1 on the show.
But you did change it.
You gave me a mulligan there.
I did. So maybe enough, we both get a mulligan. We're back in it. But look, Thursday Night Football in an in-division game, that is typically a dangerous pool to be swimming in.
It is, but it's also a rookie head coach in Gerard Mayo on the Patriots playing in his, or I guess coaching in his first Thursday night football game, which is typically bad news for those coaches. Since 2000, and this is from Cleve TA on Twitter, since 2000, rookie head coaches are 22-33 against the spread, which is 40%, and a 30% win percentage against a pregame win percent expectation of 39%. When that game occurs in the first half of the season, which we are in, then these new coaches are still getting their feet wet, and their record is 5-18 against the spread, a 17% win percentage compared to a 42% expected win percentage. So this is really banking on the experience of the Jets. Again, I think the Jets are still sort of figuring things out on offense. Their defense is not nearly on the level of what we expected of them going into the season. But the Patriots are not going to like run away with a victory here. This might be a little bit more of a sweat than what you might hope for on a Thursday night, but at least you get it out of the way if it loses. But that said, again, this is probably the healthiest that the Jets are going to be right now. Like, they have all their key guys. Mike Williams seems like he's trending in the right direction as well. They figured out getting Braylon Allen involved in the passing game as well. So again, you got to think about 2 future weeks and all that sort of stuff. I love the Bengals pick because, especially if a bunch of people in your league pick the Bengals in week 1, they're obviously not in the league anymore, but you've got a chance here too as well. Right. I just think there's a wider range of outcomes for the Commanders and what they've shown versus the New England Patriots. And again,
I'm looking at the Bengals at home back against the Wall. It's a must-win game. Like, this is your season.
Yeah.
And I don't think Joe Burrow's not going to show up. And he showed up in Kansas City, ready to play, as Joe Burrow always does. And I think things will be all right there. But chaos from the Jets and the Patriots, I'm here for. I'm looking forward to that. Make sure you tune in later in the week too, because Scott Bogman and I are going to break down that game, all the props from it. We're going to have a lot to say about that too. And as Sam mentioned, the Jets starting to use multiple running backs. Mike Williams potentially starting to move a little bit more into that passing attack too as he gets healthier. So a lot of shifts going on there. Sam, this was a tremendous deep dive into the numbers, and I think we've got a pretty good handle on things for week 3, thanks to you. And of course, check out more of Sam's work over at bettingpros.com. He's got all his articles up there, all the data, all the stats that you could possibly handle to make sure you're getting the best bets. Make sure you subscribe to the Betting Pros channel, ring the bell till it goes ding, drop your comments below too. What numbers are you looking at this week? And who is your survivor pool pick? Please tell us, because clearly we could use some help. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Sam Hoppen, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Have a great week 3.